Okay, I started recording. Today we're jumping into chapter 10. And chapter 10 is depreciation, amortization, and depletion. And I apologize. Our printer's been down, so I just pulled last semester's forms that I had left over for you, but there were some slight changes on it. So yours should say handout number 11, and the second learning objective, discuss special depreciation methods and other depreciation issues. That's no longer an objective anymore. There are some preliminary questions. These aren't the ones that I was talking about just a minute ago. These are just some practice ones for you guys to try, and we'll start in like 3 or 4 minutes. Don't worry about these. These aren't the hard ones. Should be under this class 11, chapter 10 student. We're good? No problem. Okay, so let's go ahead and walk through these preliminary questions. And these are just some concept questions that I pulled out of the test bank. Each of the following are physical factors affecting depreciation. So this is casualties, and I don't really like their particular use of the word because it typically is associated with a loss of life, right? But the assumption here, I'm assuming, is either doing a poor job of creating products or damage to the machine itself won't last a certain period of time. So that is something that we take into account with that. Decay is sort of the wear on the machine over the useful life, it just decays. Obsolescence is not a factor that affects depreciation. If it's obsolete, then you have to do an impairment test on it, all right? And then normal wear and tear is included in calculating depreciation. The term depreciable base or depreciation base, as it's used in accounting, refers to, and so it's the amount to be charged debited to expense over an asset's useful life. And so that seems pretty good, right? That's what we're doing with that one. The cost of the asset less the related depreciation recorded to date. So what is that? That's not what we're looking for here, but we do have a term for that, right? Book value, right? Okay. The estimated market value of the asset at the end of its useful life. So typically that would be like a salvage value or something along those lines. And the acquisition cost of the asset. So it's part of it, but really your answer is A. Which of the following is a realistic assumption of the straight line method of depreciation? The asset's economic usefulness is the same each year. So is that realistic? No, typically things break down. I would argue for computers and things like that, this should be the case. But for machines and things like that, you typically have more maintenance costs later on in life. Even things like buildings, plant like that would also have different maintenance costs as the building gets older. So it is not A. The repair and maintenance expense is essentially the same each period. Again, it assumes that, but it's not really realistic. The rate of return analysis is enhanced using the straight line method. Could be, might not be. The depreciation is a function of time rather than a function of usage, and that is true. Because we're looking at it and saying each time period is going to do the same amount of depreciation. Okay? Worley Truck Rental uses group depreciation method for its fleet of trucks. When it retires one of the trucks and receives cash from the salvage company, the carrying value of the property, plant, and equipment will decrease by the original cost of the truck, less the cash proceeds, or C, the cash proceeds received, and the original cost of the truck. And in this case, the answer is C, cash proceeds received. McDonald Company acquired machinery on January 1, 2015, which it depreciated under the straight line method with an estimated life of 15 years and no salvage value. On January 1, 2020, so after 5 years have gone by, McDonald estimated that the remaining life of this machinery was 6 years with no salvage value. How should this change be accounted for by McDonald? As a prior period adjustment? So no, that's not correct. As a cumulative effect of the change in accounting principle in 2020. So we didn't change accounting principle. We just changed an estimate by setting future annual depreciation equal to 1/6 of the book value on January 1, 2020. So this is the correct answer. And this would be incorrect by continuing to depreciate the machinery over the original 15-year life, right? And I think the assumption there is that some things will be small changes. And so rather than going back and reporting it retroactively, you just go forward with the small changes. Any questions on the preliminary questions? Okay. All right, so let's talk about applying the appropriate depreciation concepts and methods. So the formula for cost per unit equals, you have the historical cost minus the salvage value And we're going to divide that by the total estimated units of activity. To get depreciation expense, the actual number of units produced must be multiplied by the formula, by the cost of the unit. You may have remembered from 2302 when you talk about predetermined overhead rates, right? You come up with the rate, and then in order to apply overhead, you use those rates. And that's similar here. We're coming up with a rate, and then we have to use that rate to calculate our depreciation expense using actual figures. So the formula for annual depreciation, historical cost minus the salvage value divided by the useful life. And then this applies for all of them, but just they like to throw a change in years. So reminder to make adjustments to depreciation when the year is not a full year. Okay, decreasing charge methods, and essentially what this does, or these do, is they shift the depreciation to higher levels in the first couple of years. So with the numerator, now let me do the formula. So the formula is going to be to multiply the historical cost minus the salvage value by the fraction. And the numerator equals the remaining useful life. And the denominator equals the sum of the useful life digits. So, give you an example. For example, if an asset has a 10-year useful life, in the first year, the fraction would be 10 divided by 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10. So I think that's 10 divided by 55. And then the next year would be 9 divided by 55, 8 divided by 55. And so you can see the largest portion of the depreciation is taken in that first year. Declining balance method. So what you're going to get usually is some number. You'll have a number in front of it, like double declining balance, triple declining balance. I've only seen double used in practice, but if you can come up with a reason for it, you can depreciate it more if that in fact is what the economic usefulness of the asset is. Now, this formula does not use the salvage value. Formula is to multiply the book value times, and I'm going to put these in quotes, the number or declining balance by the rate of straight line depreciation. So for a 5-year useful life asset, double declining balance would be calculated by multiplying 2 for the double times 1 divided by 5 because that's 1 year of depreciation for the straight line method. So that's going to be equal to 2 times 0.2 or 20%. And so that would equal 0.4 or 40%. Now, another reminder, do not depreciate below salvage value. And this goes for all depreciation, but especially important with declining charge methods. Declining charge methods, excuse me. We'll bring that back down in a second. I just want to. Okay. Group and composite methods allow companies to group similar assets together. And so you use straight line depreciation for each then calculate sum of the depreciation and divide by the historical cost. So the sum is the total annual depreciation by total historical. And then you have hybrids or combination methods. And GAAP allows companies to develop their own depreciation methods. And so they may be a hybrid type method, or they may be a standalone method that's not the same as any of the other methods. Like, I haven't heard of anybody doing it, but if you wanted to keep your book simple, maybe you could use tax depreciation methods. I don't know why you would do that, but maybe you feel like it's the best representative of your economic activity in the way that it works. Okay, so I'm going to do some easy ones, and then I'm going to give you guys some really hard practice ones. Not intentionally. I must have just been feeling a little mean when I did this. So I apologize because it was from the people from last year, but I'm here to help, so we'll get through it. So let's take a look at example one. Company purchased a truck at the beginning of 2020 for $109,200. The truck is estimated to have a salvage value of $4,200 and a useful life of 120,000 miles. Okay, so if we want to calculate our rate, I don't know why everything is bolded here. Rate, that's going to be equal to 109,200 minus the salvage value, 4,200. And we're going to divide that by the estimated total activity of 120,000. And so that's going to give us 105 divided by 120, 875. And then so what we're going to do is we're going to multiply, because that gives us per mile. And now we have to apply the formula. Miles driven actual equals 21,000, because we're trying to find depreciation expense for 2020. And so we take that 21,000 and we multiply it by 0.875. And it should come out to 18,375. Let's check that. 18,375. I have on the front of my handout, just as a reminder to myself, and I don't know if you guys want to do it, but I put a little note in here: use salvage value, use salvage value, use salvage value, and then I say, no, don't use salvage value for this one. The ones with the group or hybrid are special, so I don't worry about those. But this is nice, like you can say, okay, I don't got to go through all of my notes to figure it out. Like I know it, but sometimes I forget, do I use that salvage value? Do I not use it? So having that there on that front when you're going through a test might be helpful for you. Okay, straight line. I'm gonna let you guys try this one. Bless you. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at this one. And I always try to go really slow on these when I'm calculating it. And sometimes I even have to use my fingers, which I'm not necessarily embarrassed about, but I just don't I don't think about calendar math very often, right? So how many months do we have here? So correct, 3 years and a month or 37 months. So you can kind of go about this a couple different ways. We can take the historical cost, 700,000 minus the 70,000. And then we can divide this by 5. And that comes out to, I think, 126,000 per year depreciation. And I'm going to take the 126 and divide it by 12 to get monthly. And so that comes out to 10,500 per month. 10,500 per month. We have 37 months times 10,500, and that equals 388,500, or D. Any questions there? Okay, let's look at the sum of the years digits. You guys read that one and I'll walk through it. Give you a few seconds. Okay, so this one has gone through 7 years of depreciation. So we need depreciation for the 8th year. So the fraction for sum of the year's digits equals the useful years remaining 1 divided by 36, which equals the sum of 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8. And so 1 divided by 36 is the rate. And so we take 390,000, we subtract out the salvage value, 12,000, and then we multiply it by 1 divided by 36. Oh. Hit the number lock key. And that comes out to be 10,500. Now this one says what should be. And so I think what they're indicating there is that they don't want you to go back and take all the previous years and see if it goes below the salvage value. But we should technically go back and say, okay, what are all my depreciation for each of those years? Which, you know, if you're using Excel is pretty easy. So what I'm doing here is just setting up the fraction already. So I only have to do one multiplication process. And so if we sum these up, we have to make sure that it doesn't go over our amount, which the 10,500 would be there. And so that would take us to exactly 378,000. Normally that does not work out like that, but just be aware that if they're just asking for it, you know, you could have a potential to have to go back through and calculate past depreciation. I will try to make it a little more clear than the question is there. Okay. Any questions? Okay, so Ramos Company purchased machinery that was installed and ready for use on January 3, 2020 at a total cost of $230,000. Salvage value was estimated at $30,000. The machinery will be depreciated over 5 years using the double declining balance method. For the year 2021, Ramos should record depreciation expense on this machinery. So we have to recognize depreciation is for the second year. So first, find the rate, which equals 2 times 1 divided by 5. And so that's 40% or 0.4. And then we do not use salvage value to apply. Sorry, to calculate the base. And apply the rate. And so here, year one, we had book value equals 230,000, which we multiply by 0.4, and we end up with 92,000. Year two, book value equals the 230,000 minus 92,000. And I believe that's 138,000. Let's check my math. 138,000. Okay, we multiply that by 0.4. Remember that we have to multiply it back by 1,000. We have 55,200. And so that's B. Any questions? Okay, so let's go ahead and look at example 5. And so now we're using a composite rate of depreciation in percent. And so we have to calculate straight line depreciation for each asset. So okay, so here what I want to do is I want to calculate the basis. And so here we have 600,000 minus 40,000, which equals 560,000. Okay, for machine Y, 800,000 minus an $80,000 salvage value. And that equals 720,000. And 300,000 minus 40,000, or sorry, 60,000 equals 240,000. So my total, 1,700,000 on my basis. Nope, that's not right. Yeah, there you go. Or no, I'm reading that. 560, 720, and 240. 560, 720 plus 240 is 1,520,000. And then we're going to divide by the useful life. So this one has a 14-year useful life, this one has a 10-year, and this one has a 6. So annual depreciation, you divide that by 14, you get 40,000, 72,000, and 40,000 for annual depreciation of 152,000. Now we are not going to use that number. We have to go back up and calculate the total cost. And so we have 600 plus 800,000 plus 300,000. And that one is where I got the 1.7 million. And so now we divide annual depreciation by total cost. And so we get 152,000 divided by 1,700,000. And that equals 8.94 approximately. Any questions? Okay, let's take a look at example 6. And so we have A, B, and C. And so our basis for these, 420,000 minus 42,000. And that's 378,000. The useful life is 10 years. And so that's 37,800 per year. B, we have 225,000 minus 22,500. That equals 202,500. The useful life is 5. And so that's 40,500. C, 492,000 minus 24,000 equals 468,000. We divide that by 12 and we get 39,000. So we total that up. 117,300. Now we have to add the total cost, A plus B plus C. So we have 420,000 plus 225,000 plus 492,000. And that equals 1,137,000. Now we just divide annual depreciation, 117,300 by total cost, 1,137,000. And that equals 10.3 approximately. So these are the painful practice questions. And so now you guys get to work together and you guys get to try practice number 1. Please read it carefully. I'll show you how my work looks. And then I'll say, don't do it like me. Take the time to carefully get the figures for each part of it before you move along. Otherwise, it looks like this. And yes, sometimes I'm a hot mess. And you guys can talk. It's not really more than applying a formula. It's just a matter of getting those numbers exactly correct. Okay, if before you start making calculations, if you want to set up the formula and ask me questions, then I'll be happy to help you. All right, so once I kind of show you this, hopefully it'll be a little bit easier and you'll recognize it's all in the details. What's our formula for salvage value? And you have to multiply that by the rate, right? And so the numerator is the number of years remaining. And then the denominator equals the sum of years' digits. So what additional complication does this add? So that's not too terrible one. It's a little bit of one. But what's the other, what are we looking for? We're looking for a full year for 2021, right? So we have part of this first year. So we take the 475 minus the $25,000 salvage value, and that equals 450,000. And for the first year, what's our fraction? I believe it's 8/36, right? And so we multiply that out, 450,000 by 8 divided by 36, but we also need to adjust it for the year. When did we place this into service? So the hint is here, nearest full month. Our nearest full month to September 19th, October 1. And so it was placed into service October 1 in 2020. So how many months? It went through 3 months already. So what you have to do is go 12 minus 3 divided by 12. Because we want 9 months of 2001. Right? And now we need to start the second year to account for 3 of 12 months. And so we have 450,000. We're going to multiply that by 7 divided by 36. And then we're going to multiply that by 3 divided by 12. And so I end up with 75,000 for that number and 21,000, excuse me, 875 for a total 12-month depreciation of 96,875. And I hope that's C. Okay, now you guys try practice number 2. Set up your formula and then you'll have to solve it algebraically, which I know everybody loves using math. You don't have to whisper. It's okay to talk. Even though you don't want the bad guys to find out. Okay, so I'm gonna help you set it up. So historical cost less the salvage value. And then you have to multiply that by the rate. And we know that that's going to be equal to 210,000. So I'm just going to abbreviate this as HC minus, and we know the salvage value is 45,000. And our rate, so this is our fourth year. So think 10, 9, 8, 7 is the fourth year, 7 and 55. And then that equals 210,000. So now multiply by 5 or 55 over 7, both sides, to eliminate that fraction. And you end up with historical cost minus 45,000 equals 1,650,000. Add 45,000 to both sides. And so we get historical cost equals 1,695,000. I would. Well, this one doesn't have that particular requirement, but in general, I would, unless it says otherwise. Okay, so I'll give you about 4 minutes for practice 3. And don't worry if you have to struggle a little bit with these. Like I said, I did, but it's more not setting up the formula. Like if you can set up the formula, you're doing good. It's the other part and counting all those little details that you just have to go, all right, try this one, try that one. Okay, so this company uses straight line depreciation, right? So on straight line depreciation, you need to book value, which equals your historical cost minus accumulated depreciation. And so accumulated depreciation equals your annual depreciation times number of years depreciated. And so here we had 80,000 minus 8,000. And it had a useful life of 9 years. And so that's 8,000 per year. So it says no depreciation in 2016. So we had depreciation in 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. Now, 2021 is full year as noted. So we have 8,000 per year times 5 years. And so accumulated depreciation equals 40,000. Book value, we have the 80,000 cost minus the 40,000. And so that equals 40,000. Now, when we're trying to figure out whether or not we had a gain or loss, take the consideration, less the book value, and that'll give you gain or loss. And so they got 44,000 minus 40,000 gives you a gain of 4,000. And so that was C. Any questions on that one? Okay, I got one more and then we'll get out of here and we'll pick up with part 2 next. Hey, look. Hey, look. Subtract that and get that. That's what it should be. I have a different answer. Now that looks correct. C, but we'll see. I think it's C. I think so, but we'll see. I think you just swapped your years. That's what I think happened. Okay, so this one was a challenging one, and you can start in either place, but we know depreciation doesn't look right, right? Because we have accumulated depreciation on 12/31 of 1,240,000. And then you subtract beginning balance accumulated depreciation, and you have 1.3 million. And so negative 60,000. But you have to add back the accumulated depreciation from the sale of asset. And so we have to calculate that. We say compensation or consideration, I'm sorry, I keep doing that, like my pickup truck. Consideration was 235,200. I'm subtracting the book value, which we don't know. And I know that I had a gain of 17,200. So if I want to find the book value, that equals 235,200. Sorry, got the 2 in there. Minus 17,200. And that equals 174,000 was in accumulated depreciation. So we add 174 plus the minus 60,000, and that equals 114,000. Did I make a math error? Oh, I'm sorry. 218, right? 217. Right. Okay. Sorry. I skipped a step in my head. Sorry. So it was book value that we're trying. Book value. 217. What's that? 218. Thank you. 218,000. And so book value equals historical cost minus accumulated depreciation. And so we know that's equal to 218,000. And the historical cost was 392,000. And so accumulated depreciation would be equal to 174,000. Sorry. And then so we add the 174 plus the negative 60,000. And that gives you 114,000. Sorry about that. Got a step ahead of myself. And so I kept you 3 minutes over. I apologize. I will make up for it. Good question. Thank you, Stephen, for catching that.
I just looked at it and I was like,
that math ain't mathing.
use the fractional method. And this, the method you usually with the firing. I
think I saw.
I was really doing it all by hand.
Yeah. Pretty impressive. So that's what.
To be honest, I didn't know what I was doing, but
No, your instinct was good, so that's great. All right, I'll see you guys on Thursday. I am leaning towards moving the test not from this weekend, but a week from this weekend. So we'll see where we get, but I think I'm probably not going to be able to finish chapter 10 all on Thursday. So if that is the case, then I will move the exam to the weekend following. Thank you all. Those were rough. I was like, man, I just picked them out from practice questions last year, and I was like, whew, those are tough. Take care.